Hello and welcome Grimdawn community and YouTube to another of my GG Basics episodes. In this episode I'm gonna talk about conversion, how conversion exactly works, how different types of conversion interact with each other, and also which role armor piercing plays in all of that. So first of all we're gonna take this quote from the Grimdawn Gamepedia, which says, "The order of events for conversion is as follows: base skill, then skill modifiers, then conversion on the skill transmitter, then conversion on equipment and buffs, and then equipments, auras, and passives." Now this does say that we only have two types of conversion here. Number one, conversion on skills and transmitters, and number two, conversions on equipments and buffs. It does however not mention armor piercing, it also does not mention skill transmitters via modifiers on gear. So I would like to rephrase this a bit and say the order of events for conversion is as follows. First you have your damage on your base skill, then that damage on the base skill will be modified by skill modifiers, then local conversion, such as either on a skill transmitter from the mastery or on a skill transmitter on a skill modifier on gear takes effect, then global conversion takes effect, which can be either from equipment or buffs. That's just basically the same thing as the Gamepedia said as well. Then after that, armor piercing will take effect and convert all remaining physical damage towards piercing damage, but only if that skill also has percent weapon damage. It will not only convert physical to pierce damage on the percent weapon damage part, but also on the skill itself if that skill has some, like, say, flat physical damage, for example. And then last but not least, your damage will be scaled up via equipment, auras, and passives. Now you also have to note that damage scales with the damage it has originally before conversion via, say, skill modifiers, but it will only scale with the damage it got converted towards after the conversion. So for example, all the percent damages that you have on equipments, auras, and passives, those should be of the same type that you have converted your damage towards. So for example, if you have fire damage and a skill mod has plus 50 fire damage, and also after that you convert your fire damage to lightning damage, the fire damage will be increased by the 50% fire damage on the skill mod first, but then after that, for example on equipments, auras, passive, devotions, you want to have percent lightning damage to scale that ability further. Grimdawn conversion has also a couple of special rules, three of which I'm gonna talk about real quick here, and then some others I'm gonna talk about a little bit more in detail during my later examples. First of all, bleeding damage cannot be converted at all and also not be converted towards. So bleeding to X doesn't exist, and also X to bleeding does not exist. Also you have to know why there are basically three types of conversion. Once a damage type is converted once, that converted damage type cannot be converted further via additional steps of conversion. You cannot double convert in this game. And also each of these three conversion steps, basically local, global, and armor piercing, will be multiplicative to each other. Within the same tier, they will always be additive to each other, except for the one special case, which is when you have elemental to X as well as fire/lightning/cold conversion to X in the same tier. So now I'm gonna first give you an example here, then after that I'm gonna rant a bit about the either incomplete or misinformation that I found about conversion, and then after that I'm gonna show you some more examples. So if you're interested in those examples as well here, then you can also stick around until the end of this video. So let us move on to this first example here. Let us assume that you're using a skill that has 50% weapon damage, 100 physical, 100 fire, 100 burn per second, as well as 50 lightning damage. Now to properly calculate the resulting damage here, you would have to know how much weapon damage you deal. Let us assume that you have a one-hander that has 200 physical damage, like 200 flat physical damage. And then also let's assume that you get 100 flat lightning damage via either skills or passes from your masteries, gear, and components, as well as your devotions. So all flat damage that is not particularly connected to a certain active skill will be added towards weapon damage. Now 50% of that will be 100 physical and 50 lightning, right? If you add up 100 physical and 50 lightning towards the other damages, you would end up with 200 physical, 100 fire, 100 burn per second, and 100 lightning damage. Now let's assume the skill has also a skill modifier, which you also took, and this one has 50% fire damage and 100 burn damage. Now the resulting damage would be 200 physical, 150 fire, 200 burn per second, and 100 lightning. Now in the next step, local conversion would apply. Let's assume you have 50% physical to lightning local conversion. That can be either via a skill modifier on a gear piece that you have or on the transmitter on your skill and the mastery. After that 50% physical to lightning conversion, you would end up with 100 physical, 100 lightning, that was before physical. So we're gonna underscore this and mark it this way so that we know this one has already been converted towards and cannot be converted any further. Then we also have 150 fire, 200 burn, and 100 lightning. Now in the next step we're gonna apply global conversion. Let's say you have 15% physical to lightning via, for example, Stormcaller's Pact Aura. Let's assume you have 10% physical to acid, for example via a vitriolic gas stone. Let's also assume you have 20% elemental to vitality conversion via, say, a piece of gear. And let's also assume you have 20% fire to chaos conversion globally as well through maybe another piece of gear. So let's first do the physical conversions. If you convert 15% physical to lightning, 10% physical to acid, you would end up with 75 physical, 15 lightning, and 10 acid. Note that again here I underscored the 15 lightning and 10 acid to mark them as already converted. Now there's 20% elemental to vitality and 20% fire to chaos conversion. Note that elemental to X and fire/cold/lightning to X are multiplicative to each other even when they are in the same tier, and elemental will apply first. So we will first apply this 20% elemental to vitality conversion here, and this will apply to both the fire, burn, and lightning, because vitality also has a damage over time component in the form of vitality decay. So 20% elemental to vitality means out of the 150 fire, we're gonna have 30 vitality and 120 fire left for now. Then also 200 burn would be converted towards 160 burn per second and 40 vitality decay per second. The 100 lightning that has not been converted towards before will end up as 80 lightning and 20 vitality. The already converted 100 lightning will just remain as 100 lightning as it has been converted once already. Now we also have 20% fire to chaos, right, which will now apply after the elemental to vitality conversion. We have 120 fire left after the vitality conversion, right, so 20% from those, like 120 fire, will be exactly 24 chaos. So 24 chaos and 96 fire is what we would end up with here. Note that chaos has no damage over time component, so the 160 burn per second will not be converted to chaos whatsoever. Now after this, if there's any physical damage remaining, and also the skill has weapon damage, as this one has, armor piercing on your weapon will now come into play. Let's assume your weapon has 33% armor piercing, so it will now convert 33% of your 75 physical to pierce. Let's just round up this a bit and say you have 50 physical and 25 pierce damage. The rest remains the same, as armor piercing only converts physical. Now after all of that, let's also apply percent damage boost that you have either from devotions or skills or auras or gear, and in this example the character would have 200% vitality damage and 100% pierce damage modifiers. These will now apply to the already converted stats, so we would in total end up with 50 physical, 50 piercing, 96 fire, 160 burn per second, 195 lightning if you sum up all the lightning damage here, 10 acid, 24 chaos, and then the sum of 50 vitality damage times 3, because like plus 200% is basically like times 1 plus 2, right? So times 3, so 150 vitality damage here. And the same thing for the vitality decay, 120 vitality decay here. This would be a perfect example that takes into account pretty much all the different damage types in the game, and also all the different types of conversion in the game. The only thing this example did not cover is what happens when you say have 100% physical to lightning and also 100% physical to acid on the same tier. I will cover that and also give you more examples after I'm gonna shortly talk about which other information there is out there on the internet. Now, why do a whole episode about just this one topic, conversion? Well, because I've seen lots of people actually not know or like understand how conversion works, and I found some sources for that can actually be misleading or that are simply just outdated. And because of those sources, people tend to think that conversion works a certain way, which it actually does not. Now, if you Google Grim Dawn conversion, the first couple of sites that I found are a short video about conversion armor piercing guide, which is actually pretty good and covers, I think, pretty much everything as well. And then I found the Grim Dawn fandom wiki, and then this link to the official forums. This one just links towards the conversion skill from Arcanist, and you have the next link linking towards the game mechanics page of this fandom wiki, which overall seems to be pretty alright. And then when you come to the conversion part here, this stuff still seems good so far, like this is a good example, but it doesn't really cover all the possibilities of conversion. But then it starts differentiating between like equipment and skills, and this can be a little bit misleading, because the site thinks that like equipment conversion is basically different than, say, for example, global conversion on Star Pack, and that is not true, which I will show you guys later. This should not be called on equipment. This should just be like differentiated between global conversion and local conversion instead of on equipment or on skills. Yeah, like local conversion on skills is one thing. This can be done via either transmitters or via transmitters on skill modifiers on gear, and thus on equipment is basically global conversion, which can either happen via gear or also via auras, such as, for example, Star Pact, Stormcaller's Pact, etc. And then we have this example down here, which I'm gonna talk about later as well, because this is just not quite right. Then we also have this forum link here, and which leads to this all you need to know about conversion thread, which seems kind of nice. And then you have this link, like you can find the detailed description here, and then just gives you this, right? This has to do with the new forums being set up like a year ago, and ever since then these old links don't work anymore, which is kind of sad, because sometimes Google still links you towards these pages, which are fine, but then also these pages have links which don't work anymore. Other than that, this thread is actually still pretty good, and it's still pretty up to date. It at least does not have any wrong information in here. The only problem is that this is information from March 2017, which means it will not take into account the skill modifiers that are found on gear now that the game has ever since the Ashes of My Mouth expansion pack. Other than that, this order of events, which can also be found on the game mechanics #conversion site on the Gamepedia, is actually right. The only thing that still is lacking is that it doesn't say that this conversion on skill or transmitter, which is basically local conversion, does also include skill transmitters on gear, and that skill conversion on gear happens at the same stage as skill conversion through transmitters. It does, however, say that conversion on equipment and buffs such as Star Pact and global conversion on items happens at the same time, but after the local conversion on the skill transmitters. Overall, this is at least better than what the Grandon fandom wiki has to offer, because this one is just not right sometimes. But this still is a little bit outdated, and it can also still sometimes lead to misunderstandings, because it said like the order of events for conversion is as follows, and you might think that like each of these steps can have conversions, which is not true. I mean, conversion only happens here or here. There are only two types of conversions, and this one happens first and this one happens after that. And within these tiers, usually all conversions are additive, and this type of conversion is multiplicative to this one. There are, however, some special cases and exceptions that I'm gonna also cover in this video. Note, however, that double conversion does not work. So if you, for example, converted something using local conversion, you cannot convert that further using global conversion. For example, on this demolitionist here, right? You have, for example, canister bomb and grenade, right? Canister bomb usually deals pierce, fire, and burn damage, and the skill modifier, improved casing, only adds internal trauma damage and adds bonus pierce, bonus fire, and bonus burn damage, right? Same thing for grenade, right? This has physical pierce base damage, then the modifier adds percent internal trauma, percent physical, and adds flat fire on top of that, and then shattering blast will add flat internal trauma on top of that, percent retaliation damage added to attack on top of that, and then percent crit, pierce, and fire damage. And you can basically check every single skill in the game, and these skill modifiers, so like this one, or this one, this one, this one, etc., these will never ever have conversion. So next we have conversion on the skill or transmitter. Now in the skill tree, since you don't have the conversion on the skill modifiers, usually conversion on the skill is on the transmitter, so I'm not sure why it says conversion on the skill or transmitter. Maybe they're talking about skill modifiers on weapons or other items that have conversion. Ozion's Flamespreader, right? This one does convert physical to fire and pierce to fire to canister bomb. Same thing here in the transmitter, this will convert physical to lightning and pierce to lightning. So here's gonna be the perfect moment to start my first conversion example. This is gonna be the interaction between two sources of local conversion. One of these sources is from masteries, the other one is from gear, and they both will have a combined total conversion of over 100%, in this case actually 200% total. Now what happens if we use both of those conversions at the same time? So if you just use the Ozion's Flamespreader, right, your canister bomb will now be basically full fire. It does have a little bit of lightning, chaos, aether, frostburn, and code in there, because this also adds weapon damage. Let me take like a 5-piece out here. Now I don't have any weapon damage anymore on the ability. Now it will be pure fire and burn, right? Because all of the base damage of the skill, the physical and pierce damage will be converted to fire, so this will be pure fire now. Now what happens if you put the 3 points here, physical and pierce to lightning instead, right? And you take off this weapon. Well, now the physical and pierce will be converted to lightning, right? So the pierce here is gonna be lightning, the internal trauma is gonna be electrocute damage. It won't show you here, but it will show you over here. You will see this is gonna be like lightning and electrocute, and you still have the fire and burn from the base skill. Now what if I put back this Ozion's Flamespreader here? Well, what's gonna happen is that the physical will be split 50-50 between physical to fire and physical to lightning, and also the pierce will be split 50-50 between pierce to lightning and pierce to fire. Now the reason for that is because those conversions happen at the same time. Like these conversions are basically in the same tier of conversion. So you can see that right now I have 2.8k to 3.8k lightning and 6.1k electrocute, as well as 3.8k fire and 6.8k burn. Now the moment I equip this, the lightning should be down to 1.4 to 1.9k, and the electrocute should go down to 3.05. Let's put this one on, and you can see this didn't quite happen. The reason why this didn't quite happen is because this thing also gives me percent lightning and percent electrocute damage, plus 4 canister bomb, as well as plus 2 skills to demolitionist, so that's actually increased the amount of like base damage that we have here on this one. Now if you remove the 4-piece bonus and try to also remove, I don't know, roughly about the same lighting percent. So yeah, this obviously didn't quite work the way I wanted to, but what I tried to do is like I took out 4 points from canister bomb now at the spirit guide here, and also took off the shoulders, which gave me another like percent lightning damage, right? So now we still have a little bit more percent lightning damage than before this weapon, but you can see that the lightning and electrocute values are kinda only 50% of that before. And if you do like the correct math and you remove all of those percent modifiers, well, you will see that if you have this weapon equipped as well as these 3 transmitter points here, that the physical and pierce to lightning conversion will be split 50-50 between fire and lightning in the end. Now let's check out an example for global conversion, because some people told me that they think that global conversion on items and auras are not additive but rather multiplicative. That is also not true. They are additive, and I'm gonna show you here. So this is my Cold Devastation Warlock that you might know from like another video. And this Cold Devastation Warlock uses 60% Aether to Cold conversion on Star Pact to convert Aether to Cold on Devastation, as well as Hara's Shoulders with ideally 30% conversion, but this one is only like 27 to Cold, like Aether to Cold conversion. Now, if it was additive, then you would just add up 27% plus 60% equals 87% conversion, right? Global Aether to Cold conversion. Now, you can check out why that is true. For example, if you hover over the Devastation spell here, like the way Grim Dawn tooltips work, unfortunately, is that if you open this skill window and like hover over your abilities, these will only like show you the local conversion applied to them. They will not show you the global conversion. And also it will only show you the local conversion towards the base skill and not towards any skill modifiers, as we've seen earlier with Canister Bomb, where Canister Bomb was properly shown converted, but improved casing was not, even though improved casing is also converted. So in this case, none of the Aether damage is actually converted in this number. So 4878 is basically what you have for Aether damage if you still have like full Aether damage. But if you put on like Devastation over here and then check out Devastation damage here, then you will see it says only 624. Now why does it only say 624? Because if you remove 87% of that, you have 13% damage remaining only, and if you multiply this 4878 damage times 13%, you will get 634 damage, which would be even more than the 624, so apparently even more than 87% is converted. If you want to actually see how much is converted here, you can just divide the 624 divided by 4878, and you will see that actually 12.8% is unconverted, which means that 87.2% is actually converted. Now why we have this like 0.2% discrepancy here, I actually don't know that for sure, but let's check out the math, how it would be if you had multiplicative conversion. The guy I was talking to, for example, said that gear conversion happens before global conversion through skills, like global conversion on gear happens before skills. So if that was true, then you would first lose 27% of the Aether to Cold, thus you would have 73% remaining as Aether, and then you would lose another 60% of that to the Cold by the Star Pact exclusive, so you would have another 40% of this remaining. So this would mean that I would have 1424 Aether damage remaining, which is obviously not true. Also, another good example to prove you that these are additive and not multiplicative is if we just have a total value of like 100% through gear and passes combined, right? In this example, you have 31% Aether to Cold and 27% Aether to Cold together. This means this is 58% Aether to Cold, and now I have this at 20 out of 12 because I dropped +2 Star Pact from the Eastern Ropes here, leaving me with 56% Aether to Cold conversion, right? So this would mean that I would first lose 58% of my Aether to Cold via gear, which means I would have 42% remaining, and then can lose 56% of my Aether to Cold due to the skill modifier, which means I would have 44% remaining of what is remaining before that, so I would still have like 900 Aether damage remaining. And if this was additive, then you would just have 58% plus 56%, so 114% Aether to Cold conversion. I mean, you cannot convert more than 100%, so you basically have 100% conversion. And as you can see, it is pure cold. This proves that global conversion, whether it's from gear or from passive skills such as Star Pact, are the same type of conversion and work additively. So for example, what I've seen here on this grimdawn.fandom.com/wiki/game-mechanics, or rather the example that I saw here on this website, is just wrong. Now, this example talks about cadence. First of all, that information seems to be outdated because nowadays Discord can convert up to 100% of the physical to elemental. This one says that Discord only converts 50% of the physical to elemental, which is outdated. But for the sake of this example, or also for like disproving this example, we will just say that as the website says, Discord converts only 50% of the physical to elemental. And also the website says that Stonecross Pact converts 15% physical to lightning, and the build is also using a 10% physical to fire conversion amulet. Let's zoom in a little bit here for you. So it says Cadence deals 120 physical damage. Alright, so 50% of that gets converted to elemental via Discord. Elemental conversion will always be split between fire, lightning, and cold. Also, this one comes before the other global conversion, so yeah, this will happen first. So far so good, right? Then the amulet takes place, he says, and 10% of this remaining physical damage will be converted to fire. I mean, yeah, global conversion comes after local, so this is right as well. But then he also said like Stonecross Pact will convert 50% of that remaining 54% to lightning, which is not true because this conversion happens at the same time as this. So the 15% should be of 60 and not of 54, and that's why this should be 9, so like 29 lightning damage, and also only 45 physical damage remaining, because these two happen at the same time, and I'm kinda sorry to say that, but this is straight up misinformation, and has apparently been misinforming lots of players throughout the months and years of Grim Dawn. So if anybody who is watching this video knows somebody, or maybe is able to edit this himself, then please edit this. This is wrong as it sounds. Now there are some exceptions, some weird interactions, and those are some special interactions that I'm gonna talk about here now. First of all, we have dot damage. Every single damage type of Grim Dawn has dot damage, except for Aether, Pierce, and Chaos. And all of those dot damage types can also be converted into other types of dot damage. For example, you can convert internal trauma into execute with physical to lightning conversion, just like with the example of canister bomb, or you could also like convert any burn to electrocute with like fire to lightning conversion, or any poison to frostburn with acid to cold conversion. Now you cannot convert, say, burn damage to chaos, aether, and pierce, because those damage types don't have a corresponding dot damage type. So if you have fire to chaos conversion and your skill does burn damage, your burn damage will just still stay burn damage. Also note that bleed damage is not the dot damage of pierce. That is a common misconception. Bleed is just another damage type that has no flat damage component, and also pierce is just like aether and chaos, a flat damage type that does not have any dot damage. This is also one of the reasons why bleed does not have any type of conversion, like you cannot convert anything to bleed, and also bleed cannot be converted to anything else. Bleed will always stay bleed, and there's no way to convert any other damage type towards bleed as well. Now in the following example I'm going to talk about a little bit weirder interaction, elemental to X and fire/cold/lightning to X conversion, both of which are going to be global in this case, but they would also interact the same way if they were local conversions. So let us take this example here. If we converted Blackwater Cocktail on this guy to Aether, for example, let me also just remove these gloves here because these have lightning damage to Cocktail, and that might be a little bit confusing. So now Blackwater Cocktail only has fire and burn, right? So what if we use global conversion to convert this fire to aether? You might think, well, you have the option to either use elemental to aether conversion or also fire to aether conversion, right? And if you add up these values, right, this is 27% elemental, 29% elemental, so we have 56% elemental to aether conversion, as well as 55% fire to aether conversion. So in total, this will be well above 100% conversion value. So ideally, you might think this would convert all of the fire damage to aether, right? Let me also take off the belt and ring slots here again, and again show you the damage, right? This is pure fire and burn damage. Now, what happens if we apply all of this? Wait, why does it still have fire and burn? I thought all of the fire would be converted to aether. I mean, it still has burn because aether does not have a dot, but why does it still have fire? Well, the reason is because elemental to X or also fire to X will not be additive. These will be multiplicative. So you can see we have 1281 to 1504. Let's just take the highest damage ceiling here as a number that we do our calculations with, right? So we have 1504 fire damage, right? If we apply these two, we will have 657. So now if you divide 657 by 1504, you will see that you have 43.7% fire damage remaining. These two together had around 56% conversion, so you should have around 44% fire damage remaining. So the math checks out here so far. Now if you use the belt on top, this would have like 55% fire to aether conversion, right? We are down to 291 fire damage. So 291 divided by 1504 means you still have 19.3% fire damage remaining. So this would imply that these are multiplicative. So you have 0.44 times 0.45 fire damage remaining, which is 19.8%. which is like close to 19.3% here. I mean, if it was additive, you would have no fire damage remaining. So this basically proves that elemental to aether and then like fire to aether conversion is multiplicative. And this will be the same for any elemental to X combined with either fire, lightning, or cold to X damage conversion. The next example is gonna be X to elemental and X to fire / cold / lightning conversion. Both conversion types will be global, and also the total global conversion will have a sum greater than 100%. So what we're gonna look at in this example is how do different conversions from the same type, in this case global, interact with each other, and how do they scale down each other when you have more than 100%. Also at the same time we're gonna check if these apply all at the same time or if there's a certain order in which these apply. Now what if you want to convert the other way around? What if you want to convert aether to, say, elemental, and how does that interact with aether to fire conversion? So I am a Templar here, and to make it really simple, I'm just gonna put 1 point into AAR. This one deals fire and aether damage. So now aether ray deals 448 aether damage right now. Okay, first of all, let me actually unequip all these slots that we're gonna need here. I mean the belt slot, the shoulder slot, chest, and helmet slot, right? So now aether ray still deals 448 aether damage, right? So if you put on this Iskandros vestment, this one has aether to elemental damage conversion, right? You put this here, this one has also aether to elemental conversion. These two together have 45% aether to elemental, and you also have this belt with 55% aether to elemental. So together these three would have exactly 100% aether to elemental conversion, which means that the aether damage should be completely gone, right? It says 0. Now what happens if we take a mythical crowned infernal gems, which also converts aether to fire? So if aether to fire would happen at the same time as aether to elemental, then you would see these like cold and lightning numbers going down and the fire number going up. Now you will see the fire number going up either way because of the fire percent here, but the cold and lightning numbers should be good indicators of whether or not this will happen at the same time, or whether it will happen before aether to elemental conversion or after aether to elemental conversion. So we put this on here, you will see that cold and lightning damages actually go down. So this means that aether to fire conversion does certainly not happen after aether to elemental damage conversion. This means that aether to fire damage conversion either happens before aether to elemental or at the same time. For example, let's take the cold number here, right? 323 cold, and after we have 249. So this means 249 divided by 323, right? That we lost 23% of our cold damage. This implies that aether to fire damage conversion happens at the same time as aether to elemental damage conversion, because once you have above 100% conversion, in this case you basically have 130% aether to fire / elemental conversion. So what will happen is that it will be scaled down to a 100% conversion total, but they will keep their relative ratios towards each other. So it will still be like a 100 to 30 ratio. So these numbers scaled down to 100% would mean that you basically have 77% aether to elemental conversion right now and 23% aether to fire conversion. If you check out the cold damage on aether ray, this checks out again because you have 77% of our cold value from before. So this hammer did scale down my overall aether to elemental conversion from 100% to 77% instead. Or you could also say it scaled down my total aether to cold conversion from 33.3% to 25.7%. And it did the same thing for lightning as well. You could do the math there as well if you wanted to. But for fire, we have those 25.6% plus the remaining 23%. So we have a total of 48.7% aether to fire conversion instead. So yeah, that's how, for example, aether to fire and aether to elemental conversion, as well as having more than 100% total conversion works in this game. Also, I can give you a small example to prove that local conversion always comes before global conversion, right? For example, you have this Ozin's Flame Spreader, which converts all of the physical and pierce damage to fire on Canister Bomb. So right now on Canister Bomb, if you take out the weapon damage that the 5-piece set provides, we have pure fire and burn damage here, right? And you can see that without the weapon, the skill deals lots of pierce damage. So we have this global pierce to cold conversion pair of gloves here. These convert, for example, 20% pierce to cold globally. If we choose these instead of what we have here, then we will have still some pierce left, like 80% will be still pierce, and we have some cold damage, as you can see here. Now if we use this local conversion weapon here, we will still only have fire. So this pierce to cold conversion will now have no effect whatsoever. And also works the same way with this transmuter over here. Right? This one converts physical and pierce to lightning. This is again local conversion. So this means that like all of my physical and pierce will be now lightning and electrocute instead. And if we add these gloves on top, nothing will happen. Also, to quickly just show you that you cannot double convert, we're gonna apply these red guys shoulder guards here, which convert lightning damage to vitality damage. So I still have lightning and electric damage through this transmitter, right? That's converted my physical and pierce damage to lightning. But since this is already converted once, like this already converted once, like physical to lightning, pierce to lightning, the lightning cannot be converted further, right? You can put these on, which converts lightning to vitality, but nothing happens. Now, last but not least, I'm also gonna shortly talk about armor piercing. Now, armor piercing is basically not the same as physical to pierce conversion, but it is very similar. Armor piercing basically comes after local and global conversion, and also does only work on skills that have also percent weapon damage. If a skill has percent weapon damage though, it will not only convert your weapon damage, but also all the flat physical damage that is on that skill. So for example, I'm gonna go ahead and equip this Herpaderp sword, which has 50% armor piercing. This one does not have any added physical damage on the affixes, just the 94 to 127 physical damage on the base weapon. So if we take the high value here, 127 physical damage with 50% armor piercing, this will be added towards cadence, right? So this will be amplified by 420%. So we have 127 times 4.2 equals 533.4 physical damage. Now this will also be scaled up by percentages, such as the bonus physical damage through cunning, as well as the bonus physical damage over here. In this case we have 0% here, as well as 217.1% over here. So this will be now multiplied by 1 plus 2.17 equals 1.69k physical damage. Now to this we would also add the physical damage from cadence, because right here in this case this 577 physical damage that's shown here will already be also scaled up by the percentages. So this plus 577 is 2.267k, and since we have 50% armor piercing, we will now convert 50% of that to pierce. So 50% of those will be lost, and we have basically 1.134k physical damage remaining, which is exactly what we see over here. As you can see, armor piercing does also convert all of the physical damage towards piercing from the weapon, also from affixes if this had any physical affixes, as well as the physical flat damage from the skill that you're using, as long as the skill has main hand damage, or any kind of weapon damage, as long as that weapon damage would mean that you are actually attacking with the weapon that has the armor piercing. Now, how does armor piercing interact with local and global conversion? So first of all, I'm gonna show you how it interacts with local conversion. We have these mythical void sea gauntlets here, which convert all of the physical damage to chaos to cadence, and also add +2 as well as 55% weapon damage to cadence. So we still have this 1134 physical number here that you saw earlier, and if we apply these gauntlets here, you will see that both the pierce damage and the physical damage will be lower. The physical damage would be completely gone, and the pierce damage should also be lower. After applying these gauntlets, you can see that we have now up to 1065 pierce damage, as well as 2699 chaos damage. Now let's check the math behind this pierce damage here. So if we're gonna assume that all of the physical damage got converted to chaos first, because local conversion comes before armor piercing, then the pierce value here should be just the pierce value on the weapon and nothing else, or rather on this affix, right? This 58 flat pierce damage should be the only reason why we have 1065 pierce damage over here as our damage ceiling for cadence. So we have 58 pierce damage here. Now we multiply this with the weapon damage mod on cadence, which in this case now is 436% plus 55%, so 491%. And then we're gonna multiply that with these pierce modifiers via cunning, as well as the pierce modifier over here. So this will give me a total damage of 1065, which is the same value as over here for the damage ceiling, as you can see. So if we double check with the chaos damage here, we have up to 127 physical damage on the sword, and up to 13 flat kills on the gauntlet, giving us a total of 140 chaos damage. And then this times our cadence mod, so times 4.91, because we actually have cadence at 18 points here. And now we increase this damage by the amount of bonus damage that we get through spirit, as well as through the chaos mod here, so 2081. And now we also can add up the flat chaos damage on cadence, so plus 618 on this one, and we're gonna end up with 2.699k chaos damage, which is exactly what we see here, as well as our damage ceiling. So in the case of local conversion, all of the physical damage was converted to kills, so there was no physical damage left to be converted to pierce. Now, one of the easiest way to add physical to chaos global conversion is via, for example, a riftstone component. And you can see right now that I have 1134 as my physical ceiling and 2250 as my pierce ceiling, right? So now if this global conversion comes before this armor piercing, both of these numbers should go down. And if this got applied after the armor piercing, or at the same point, then the physical should be lower after the conversion, but the pierce should still be the same, right? So let's apply this one here. And you can see that both numbers, both physical and pierce, went down. So this means that also global conversion, such as for example from Riftstone, comes before armor piercing. Now how can you increase armor piercing? There's for example the Blades of Nadan devotion, which has this node over here, which increases armor piercing by 100%. Now this armor piercing does not mean it's additive, it is multiplicative, as you will see here in a bit. So now I got this devotion active here. So the weapon had 50% armor piercing, right? Now if this was additive, this would be like 100% anyway, and if it was multiplicative, then it would be 100% as well, because it will just like double this number, right? 50% times 2, like increased by 100% is basically like times 2, right? So this will be 100% now. And you can see that all of my damage is pierce damage, so it is indeed at least multiplicative. Now to check if this is additive or multiplicative, you can just use a sword that has less than 50% armor piercing, such as for example this non-mythical Reaver's Claw has 33% here. And if you apply this one here, you will see that I still have physical damage left. This will basically mean now that I have 66% effective armor piercing and not like 133%. So this armor piercing increase from Blades of Nadan and also all other increased armor piercing stats from like other sources are always going to be multiplicative and not additive. Now to just like show you again that like these local and global conversions come before pierce damage, right? This will still have some chaos damage here, and this will have even more chaos damage here, right? Now just to give you a small example that this elemental to axe conversion does indeed come before fire slash lightning slash cold conversion to axe. Let me equip this Beronath reforged weapon here, which has 100% elemental to physical conversion on a buff, which is basically global conversion. And then we also have this Code of Violent Decay here, which has fire to aether conversion as well. Now this weapon also has fire, cold and lightning flat damage, and also 10% armor piercing. So right now you can see that my cadence will deal physical, pierce, cold, fire and lightning damage. Now if we turn on the aura, you will see that all of this elemental damage will become physical damage. Now we have this fire to aether damage conversion on the Code of Violent Decay. We already know that this is multiplicative to this one, but let's see what happens if we apply this one. And if the fire to aether came before the elemental to physical, then we'll have less physical damage, but aether damage instead. Let's see what happens here. And nothing changed at all. That's basically proof that this elemental to X conversion comes before fire slash cold slash lightning to X conversion. I can also show you this without the buff, right? Without the buff, obviously some of the fire damage would be converted to aether damage. Also to show you real quick that this buff here is indeed a global conversion, just like the global conversion on, for example, Voice of Druig, and is additive with this one. We can just equip this Voice of Druig here, and now you will see that this will give me some acid damage, right, via the flat acid damage on the helmet. It also has chaos to acid conversion, but I mean we don't have any chaos damage right now, so let me just turn on possession. Possession has flat chaos damage. Now you will see that we have flat chaos damage here as well. And also you can see that my acid damage goes like up and down whenever I activate this, right? Now what happens if I use Beronath Reforged? Well, the acid damage should still be higher than without possession, but it should be a little bit less because this one converts 100%, this one converts 29%, and those will like again be scaled down to like 100%. So overall I think we should have around like 75% chaos to physical and maybe like 25% chaos to acid. So if you turn this one on as well, you can see that the chaos damage went to 0 and the acid damage went down as well. But you can also see that the acid damage is still higher than without possession. And you might think, well, this is just also because possession has percent acid damage. Let me show you the same thing with Solaris Witchfire, which only has flat chaos as well as flat vitality, but no percent acid damage. So without and with, right, we still have more acid damage, even with this Might of Beronath aura active. So this basically proves that Might of Beronath is not, say, a skill modifier, it is not local conversion, it is global conversion, and it is on the same level as the Voice of Druig global conversion, the chaos to acid conversion here on this Voice of Druig item. So we have arrived at the end of this video, and I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any further questions regarding conversion, feel free to post them down below in the comment section, and also if you have found any errors that I made on this video, please point them out as well. That would be much appreciated. I don't want to spread some additional misinformation here. Also, I want to thank everybody supporting me on Twitch as well as on Patreon. You guys make it possible for me to do all of these videos for you guys. And with the next Grim Dawn patch right around the corner, coming either this week or next week, there's definitely gonna be more Grim Dawn content coming in the next couple of weeks as well as in the upcoming years, hopefully. So yeah, I mean, if you liked this video, feel free to give me a like, give me a sub, and check out my Twitch. And I hope to see you around on either my next video or my next stream. See you around, guys.